Minho Kim stood in the massive assembly hall of the Interstellar Survival Academy, surrounded by beings from 47 different worlds. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. He was one of only 12 humans in a class of 300 cadets, and right now, every single one of them was staring at the holographic display floating above the stage. The display showed a gray, lifeless moon. Rocks and dust covered its entire surface. No trees, no water, no signs of anything living. It looked like the loneliest place in the galaxy. Instructor Vexthar stepped forward. He was a reptilian being from planet Scarus, nearly 8 feet tall with deep green scales and yellow eyes that missed nothing. Everyone knew he was the toughest survival trainer in the academy. More than half of his students failed his courses every year. "This is Kiro 7, Vexthar announced. His voice echoed through the hall. "For the next 72 hours, this will be your home. This is your final examination. Pass and you graduate. Fail, and you repeat the entire year." Minho felt his friend Jiwon Park shift nervously beside him. Jiwon was also human, a tactical officer cadet with sharp instincts but less wilderness experience than Minho. On Jiwon's other side stood Hyun Lee, their medical officer friend who always prepared for everything. "Kiro 7 has been scanned by our best scientists," Vexthar continued. "I want to be absolutely clear about this. There is nothing edible on this moon. Nothing. You will each receive basic tools and water filtration equipment. Bring your emergency rations. You will need them." The hologram zoomed in, showing close-up images of the rocky surface. Dust stones and more dust. The instructor was right. It looked completely dead. "Each species will receive survival protocols based on your biology," Vexthar said. "Study them carefully. Some of you can survive longer without food than others. Use that advantage wisely." Minho studied the images carefully. His eyes moved across the gray landscape, looking for details. He had grown up in the mountains of Earth's Korean peninsula, learning wilderness survival from his grandfather. The old man had taught him something important. Every environment has food if you know where to look. "Are there any questions?" Vexthar asked. A cadet with 4 arms raised one of them. "Instructor, what about shelter?" "The temperature readings show extreme variations." "Part of the test," Vexthar replied. "Use your training, adapt, survive." Minho noticed something in one of the hologram images. In a deep crater valley, there was a slight color difference. Very slight. Most people would miss it. But Minho had learned to spot these things. Where there was color difference, there was sometimes something more than just rock. "Kim," Jiwon whispered. "You have that look." "What look?" Minho asked quietly. "The look you get when you're planning something weird." Hyun leaned closer. "Please tell me you're not going to do anything dangerous. We just need to survive 3 days. Ration the emergency supplies and wait it out." Minho smiled but said nothing. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. Dead ground to them might be living ground to us. The briefing continued for another hour. Vexthar explained the rules. No communication with the academy except for medical emergencies. No stealing supplies from other cadets. No leaving the designated survival zone. Monitoring drones would track everyone's vital signs and locations. One more thing, the instructor added. Several species in this class cannot process the same nutrients as others. Do not share food unless you are absolutely certain it is safe for the other cadets' biology. We do not want poisoning incidents. After the briefing, the cadets dispersed to prepare their gear. Minho walked with Jiwon and Hyun toward the equipment storage area. 3 days on a dead rock, Hyun said, shaking her head. This is going to be miserable. Could be worse, Jiwon offered. At least it's not a radiation zone or a volcano planet. They collected their supplies. Each cadet received a basic survival pack, a compact shelter unit, water filtration tablets, a heat source, basic tools, and 5 days' worth of emergency rations. The rations were compressed nutrition bars that tasted like cardboard, but contained everything a human body needed. Minho packed his gear methodically. He added a few items that others might overlook: extra containers for carrying water, a small digging tool, and some plastic bags. Jiwon watched him with raised eyebrows. Planning to garden out there? She asked. Just being prepared, Minho replied. That evening, Minho couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that color difference in the crater valley. On Earth, even in the harshest deserts and frozen wastelands, life found a way. Lichens grew on Antarctic rocks. Bacteria thrived in volcanic vents. Fungi lived deep underground in caves. The galaxy was big, bigger than anyone from Earth had imagined before first contact with alien species. But Minho had learned something during his time at the Academy. Most alien species came from easier worlds than Earth. Worlds with stable climates, abundant resources, and fewer natural disasters. Earth was what the galactic community called a death world. A planet so harsh that its dominant species had to become incredibly adaptable just to survive. Humans could eat an astonishing variety of foods. They could survive in deserts, jungles, Arctic zones, and high mountains. They could process toxins that would kill most other species. Maybe Vexthar was right for his species. Maybe Kiro 7 truly had nothing edible for a Scarian or a Thorvelian or a Zinth. But for a human, Minho wasn't so sure. The next morning, all 300 cadets boarded transport ships. The vessels were designed to carry multiple species, with adjustable atmosphere controls and different seating configurations. Minho found himself sitting next to an insectoid cadet named Tholmar, who seemed extremely nervous. "First survival exam?" Minho asked. Tholmar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of anxiety in his species. "Yes, I am worried. My people do not do well without food. Our metabolism is fast." "You'll be okay," Minho said. "Just ration carefully and stay calm. Panic uses energy." The transport broke through the atmosphere of Kiro 7. Through the viewport, Minho could see the gray surface approaching. It looked exactly like the holograms had shown, desolate, empty, lifeless. But as they descended lower, Minho pressed his face closer to the window. There in the crater valley he had noticed before, he could definitely see green. Just a little bit. Just enough. He smiled. The other cadets looked grim and determined, preparing themselves for 3 days of hungry survival. But Minho felt something different. He felt curious. He felt excited. The transport landed with a gentle thud. The doors opened and the cadets filed out onto the rocky surface. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, making each step feel bouncy. The air was thin but breathable, processed by the moon's atmospheric generators. Vexthar's voice came through their communication badges. "Your 72 hours begin now. Good luck, cadets." Minho picked up his pack, looked toward the crater valley in the distance, and started walking. Behind him, Jiwan called out, "Where are you going?" "The designated camp area is this way." Minho turned and waved. "I'll be fine. See you in 3 days." Yun threw up her hands in exasperation. "That man is going to give me a heart attack before we graduate." As Minho walked toward the crater, he could feel the monitoring drones tracking him from above. Let them watch, he thought. Let them all watch. This was going to be interesting. The crater valley was farther than it looked. Minho walked for nearly 2 hours across the rocky surface of Kiro 7, his boots crunching on loose stones with each step. The lighter gravity made the journey easier, but the thin air made him breathe harder. He stopped several times to drink water and check his direction. Above him, he could see the small shapes of monitoring drones. They were always watching, always recording. Back at the academy, instructors and other cadets would be viewing everyone's progress on large screens. Minho wondered what they thought of him walking away from the main camp area, while everyone else set up their shelters. When he finally reached the crater's edge, he looked down into the valley below. His instincts had been correct. Green patches dotted the shadowed areas where the sun didn't hit directly. In the galactic standard, this might look like nothing. But Minho saw potential. He carefully climbed down the crater wall, testing each foothold. The rocks were loose in places, and a fall here would be bad news. After 20 minutes of careful descent, his feet touched the valley floor. The green patches were lichen. At least they looked like lichen. They grew on rocks in areas where morning moisture probably collected. Minho knelt down and examined them closely. They were gray-green in color with a crusty texture. He pulled out a small sample container and scraped off a piece. His grandfather's training echoed in his mind. Never eat anything without testing it first. He rubbed a tiny amount on his inner wrist and waited. No burning sensation, no rash. Good sign, but not conclusive. Minho explored deeper into the crater. The valley had several cave openings along its walls. He activated his light stick and entered the largest one. The temperature dropped immediately. The cave went back farther than his light could reach. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed something on the cave walls. Fungi. Small, pale mushroom-like growths clustered in patches where water had dripped down the stone. Minho's heart beat faster. Fungi meant organic matter. Organic matter meant potential food. He collected samples carefully, marking each container with the location where he found it. Some of the fungi were white, others pale yellow. One type had a faint blue glow in the darkness. Bioluminescent. That was fascinating. Deeper in the cave, Minho found something even more interesting. His boots splashed in water. A small underground stream ran through the cave floor. And where there was water, there was usually more life. He knelt by the stream and examined it with his light. The water was clear and cold. Small stringy plants grew along its edges, waving gently in the current. They looked like algae or perhaps moss. He collected samples of those too. By the time Minho emerged from the cave, 3 hours had passed since the exam began. He found a sheltered spot near the cave entrance and set up his camp. The shelter unit assembled quickly, providing protection from wind and temperature changes. Now came the careful part. Testing. Minho started with the lichen. He boiled a small piece in water using his heat source, then let it cool. He touched it to his lips, waited. No tingling, no numbness. He took a tiny bite and held it in his mouth. The taste was bitter and earthy, but not terrible. He waited 15 minutes. No stomach pain, no dizziness. He spat it out and waited another hour, monitoring his body's reaction. Nothing bad happened. The lichen was likely safe, at least in small amounts. He would need to process it better to make it actually edible, but it was a start. The fungi took longer to test. Mushrooms could be tricky. Some were nutritious, others deadly poisonous. Minho used every test his grandfather had taught him. He checked for color changes when cut, smelled each type carefully, and did the same lip and mouth tests he had done with the lichen. One type of white fungus passed all his tests. It had a meaty texture when cooked and a mild, almost nutty flavor. Minho carefully ate a small piece and waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. He felt fine. Actually, he felt good. The algae from the stream was easier. Algae was almost always edible if it came from clean water. He knew humans on Earth had been eating algae for thousands of years. This alien version might have different nutrients, but the principle was the same. He made a thin soup with it, adding some dissolved nutrients from his emergency rations to balance it out. By nightfall on the first day, Minho had identified 5 potentially edible sources. Not a feast, but more than nothing. And he had barely started exploring. He slept well that night, warm in his shelter with water nearby and food possibilities all around him. Above, the stars looked different than they did from Earth. Binary suns set beyond the horizon, casting strange double shadows. The next morning, Minho woke early and continued exploring. He found root-like structures growing in soil pockets between rocks. They were tough and fibrous, but when boiled for a long time, they became softer. He tested them carefully and added them to his list. In another cave, he discovered a different type of fungus growing on what looked like decomposing rock minerals. This one was gray with red spots. It failed his tests immediately, causing a slight burning sensation on his skin. Poisonous. He marked it clearly and moved on. By midday, Minho heard a sound that didn't belong to wind or rocks. Footsteps. He turned to see Tholmar, the insectoid cadet from the transport ship, stumbling toward him. The alien looked weak. "Help," Tholmar clicked, his voice translator struggling to work. "Please, so hungry. My ration's gone." "Gone?" Minho asked, concerned. "How had dropped them?" "During landing. Rolled down into a crevice." "Cannot reach," Minho helped Tholmar sit down. The insectoid's exoskeleton looked dull and his movements were sluggish. His fast metabolism was already causing problems. "Wait here," Minho said. He went to his camp and prepared some of the white fungus he had tested. He cooked it thoroughly, then mashed it into a paste. He had no idea if Tholmar's biology could handle it, but the alternative was letting the cadet starve. "Eat slowly," Minho instructed. "Very slowly. Small amounts. Stop if you feel any pain." Tholmar ate the paste carefully. His mandibles worked the food and his antennae twitched. Minho watched closely for any signs of distress. After 10 minutes, Tholmar looked up. "This is good," the insectoid said. "Where did you find food?" "Instructor said nothing edible here." "He said nothing edible for them," Minho replied. "But I'm human. We eat differently." Tholmar stayed near Minho's camp for several hours, recovering his strength. As word spread through the limited cadet communication network that someone was thriving on Kiro 7, more cadets began to notice Minho's location on their trackers. Back at the academy, Instructor Vexthar watched the monitoring screens with growing confusion. The human cadet's vital signs were excellent. Better than excellent. His nutrition levels were higher than some cadets who still had full emergency rations. How is this possible? Vexthar muttered to himself. He pulled up the detailed tracking data. The human had been collecting samples all morning. Analysis showed organic material, but the scanners had found nothing significant on Kiros 7. The moon was barren. Vexthar checked the scans again. The automated systems had dismissed the lichen as insufficient nutrients, the cave fungi as potentially toxic, the algae as insignificant biomass. According to every standard assessment, none of it was viable food. Yet the human was clearly eating something, and clearly thriving. By the end of day 1, Minho had 23 different samples collected and cataloged. 13 of them had passed his basic safety tests. 8 of those were definitely edible with proper preparation. The others needed more testing. He sat outside his shelter as the twin suns set again, preparing a simple meal. Lichen bread made from dried and pounded crust. Fungus steaks cooked over his heat source. Algae soup with some minerals dissolved in it. To anyone from the academy watching, it would look impossible. Minho took a bite and smiled. Not the best meal he had ever eaten, but far better than emergency rations. And he was just getting started. Jiwan's voice came through his communication badge. Minho, are you actually eating real food out there? Define real, Minho replied with a laugh. Everyone is talking about your tracker data. The instructors are confused. What are you doing? Just cooking dinner, Minho said. Want to come over? I'll make extra. There was a long pause. Then Jiwan said, I'm on my way. This I have to see. Jiwan arrived at Minho's crater camp just as the first stars appeared. She looked tired and dusty from the long walk, but her eyes went wide when she saw what Minho was doing. He had 3 different pots working over his heat source, and the smell was actually appetizing. Is that real food? Jiwan asked, dropping her pack. Like actual food? Sit down, Minho said, stirring one of the pots. Dinner is almost ready. Jiwan sat on a rock and watched in amazement as Minho plated up servings. Crispy lichen cakes that he had fried until they were golden, chunks of white fungus that looked remarkably like chicken, a warm broth made from algae and cave moss that steamed in the cooling night air. The instructor said there was nothing edible here, Jiwan said, taking the offered plate carefully. Nothing edible by their standards, Minho corrected. Earth taught humans to eat things other species can't. We can process a lot of different organic materials. Jiwan took a cautious bite of the lichen cake. Her eyebrows shot up. This is actually good. Weird, but good. Wait until you try the fungus, Minho said, grinning. I've been calling it moon chicken. They ate together while Minho explained his process. How he had tested each food source carefully. How he had combined techniques from different Earth cultures to make the alien organisms edible. Fermentation to break down tough fibers. Boiling to remove potential toxins. Slow cooking to make hard roots tender. You turned a dead moon into a restaurant, Jiwan said, shaking her head in disbelief. Hyun is not going to believe this. How is everyone else doing? Minho asked. Hungry, bored, counting down the hours until we can leave. Jiwan paused. There's a Zinth cadet who's really struggling. Her rations got contaminated somehow. She's been trying to survive on just water. Which sector? Minho asked immediately. Northeast. Why? I'm going to make extra tomorrow. Can you help me carry it to her? Jiwan smiled. You know the instructors are watching everything, right? They're going to have questions. Let them question, Minho said. I'm not breaking any rules. Everything I'm eating came from this moon. Back at the academy, the medical monitoring station was getting unusual readings. Hyun Lee stood in front of the main screen, studying Minho's vital signs with professional interest. His nutrition levels are better than mine, she muttered, and I've been eating standard rations. Beside her, another medical student pointed at the screen. Look at his hydration markers, perfect, and his energy levels are actually increasing. Commander Thexel entered the monitoring room, his 4 arms crossed. He was the administrator who oversaw all academy training programs. His species, the Korthax, were known for their strict adherence to protocol. What is the situation with the human cadet? He asked. He appears to be thriving, Commander, Hyun reported. Based on these readings, he's not just surviving. He's having a better time than most cadets back at the academy eating in the cafeteria. Commander Thexel studied the screens carefully. This should not be possible. Instructor Vexthar assured us that Kiro 7 was thoroughly scanned. Nothing edible exists there. Perhaps the scans were calibrated for standard biology, suggested another instructor, a floating gas being named Ephril. Humans are from a death world. Their digestive systems are remarkably adaptable. The commander made a decision. Continue monitoring. If the human is genuinely finding food sources we missed, we need to understand how. This could have implications for our entire survival curriculum. On Kiro 7, morning of the second day brought more discoveries. Minho found a patch of what looked like purple grass growing in a sun-warmed valley. It was tough and bitter, but when he dried it and ground it into powder, it made a decent tea. He added it to his growing collection. Around midday, another human cadet appeared at his camp. Her name was Soman Choi, and she looked exhausted. Her face was pale and her hands shook as she approached. "Please," Soman said weakly. "I heard you have food, real food. My rations are almost gone and I can't do another day on just one bar." Minho helped her sit down and immediately began preparing a meal. Warm algae soup first, to get fluids and easy nutrients into her system. Then some of his lichen bread and moon chicken. Soman ate slowly, tears running down her face. "I thought I was going to fail," she whispered. "I trained so hard for this, but I couldn't stop thinking about how hungry I was." "You're going to be fine now," Minho assured her. "Rest here for a bit. When you're stronger, I'll show you which foods are safe and how to prepare them." "Why are you helping me?" Soman asked. "This is a test. We're competing." Minho thought about that. "My grandfather taught me something important. Survival isn't just about staying alive yourself. It's about helping others stay alive too. That's how humans made it through our worst times on Earth. We shared knowledge." Over the next several hours, Minho taught Soman everything he had learned. How to identify the safe lichen versus the poisonous types. Which caves had the best fungi. How to test new foods before eating them. Which roots needed to be boiled 3 times before they were safe. Soman took notes on her datapad, her scientific training kicking in. "This is incredible," she said. "You've basically created a complete food sourcing guide for this moon in less than 2 days. 47 different sources so far," Minho said proudly. "Well, 47 samples. Not all of them are confirmed safe yet, but I'm getting there." The news spread through the cadet communication network like wildfire. The human in the crater valley had food. Real actual food. Not just surviving, but actually eating well. More cadets began making their way toward Minho's location. Not just humans, but other species too. A crystalline being named Revan arrived. Desperate to understand how the human was finding nutrients in what appeared to be mineral dead rock. "My people eat minerals," Revan explained, his voice chiming like glass bells. "But the stones here have nothing we can process. Yet you find food everywhere. How?" Minho showed him the cave system. "Your people look for specific minerals in specific concentrations, right?" "Yes," Revan confirmed. "Humans can't eat rocks at all," Minho said. "So we learned to eat almost everything else. Every tiny bit of organic material that other species ignore, we found ways to use it. We had to. Earth didn't give us easy options." By evening, Minho's camp had become a gathering point. 7 cadets sat around his heat source, sharing a meal that shouldn't exist. Minho had prepared a feast using everything he had discovered. Lichen flatbread, 3 different types of fungi, algae soup, root vegetable stew, even a dessert made from fermented cave moss that had a sweet, tangy flavor. Jiwan helped serve the food while Soman explained the safety testing process to the other cadets. It felt less like a survival exam and more like a camping trip with friends. Tholmar, much stronger now after a day of eating regularly, clicked his mandibles happily. "This is the best survival training ever. I am learning more here than in any classroom." Back at the academy, Commander Thexel stood before the main monitoring screen with Instructor Vexthar. They watched the group of cadets eating together in the crater valley. "Explain this," the commander said quietly. Vexthar's scales had darkened with embarrassment. "I cannot explain it, Commander. According to all our data, this should be impossible. Yet it is happening." "Yes, Commander. The human is not cheating, not using hidden supplies. All our drones confirm it. Everything he is consuming came from Kiro 7 itself. He simply found food sources our scans dismissed as insignificant or unsuitable." Commander Thexel watched the screen for a long moment. "Unsuitable for us, but not for humans." "It appears so, Commander. Then our assessment was incomplete. The commander turned to face Vexthar directly. We told these cadets there was nothing edible on that moon. We were wrong. A cadet has proven us wrong using nothing but his species' natural adaptations and training. Vexthar straightened. What are your orders, Commander? I want you to go down there personally, Commander Thexel said. Investigate, verify. If this human has genuinely discovered 47 food sources on a moon we declared barren, then we have a significant problem with our survival assessment protocols. Yes, Commander. When should I depart? Immediately. We need answers. And Vexthar? If the human is correct, if we missed this completely, then we owe these cadets an apology. We nearly starved them on a moon full of food. Vexthar's yellow eyes reflected the glow of the monitoring screens. I will discover the truth. As the instructor left to prepare his shuttle, Commander Thexel looked back at the screens. The human cadet was laughing with his friends, showing them how to prepare some root vegetables. He looked happy, confident, completely at ease on a moon that was supposed to be a harsh survival challenge. Humans, the commander murmured to himself. We keep underestimating them. The sound of a landing craft broke the peaceful morning at Minho's crater camp. The sleek shuttle descended from the sky, its engines sending up clouds of dust as it touched down nearby. The gathered cadets looked up in surprise. The exam still had 20 hours remaining. No one was supposed to land early unless there was an emergency. The shuttle's door opened and Instructor Vexthar stepped out. His green scales gleamed in the double sunlight, and his yellow eyes immediately found Minho in the group of cadets. Cadet Kim Minho, Vexthar called out formally. I need to speak with you. Now. Minho stood up from where he had been showing Soman how to grind lichen into flour. He wiped his hands on his uniform and walked toward the instructor. Behind him, the other cadets whispered nervously. Instructor, Minho said, giving a respectful nod. Is something wrong? That is what I am here to determine, Vexthar replied. His voice was stern but not angry. Cadet, your biometric readings have been unusual since this exam began. Commander Thexel has ordered me to investigate personally. Some believe you may have brought hidden supplies in violation of the rules. Minho met the instructor's gaze steadily. I brought no hidden supplies, sir. Everything I've eaten came from this moon. Everything? Yes, sir. Vexthar's eyes narrowed. Cadet, I personally selected this location for training. My team scanned every square meter. There is nothing edible on Kiro 7. The scans were definitive. With respect, sir, the scans were wrong. Minho gestured toward his camp. Would you like me to show you? For a moment, Vexthar said nothing. Then he nodded slowly. Show me. Minho led the instructor to his organized collection of samples. He had everything carefully labeled and stored in containers. Different types of lichen, fungi specimens, algae samples, root sections, dried moss, and more. Each container had notes about where it was found and how to prepare it safely. 47 different sources, Minho explained. Some are better than others. Some need a lot of preparation to be safe. But they're all edible, at least for human biology. Vexthar picked up one of the containers. Inside was dried white fungus. He scanned it with a handheld device. The readings made his scales shift color slightly in surprise. This has significant protein content, he said slowly, and complex carbohydrates. How did our scans miss this? May I see your scanner, sir? Minho asked. Vexthar handed it over, curious. Minho aimed it at the fungus and showed the instructor the readout. See here? Your scanner identifies it correctly as an organism. But look at this flag. It's marked as unsuitable for consumption because it contains compounds that would be toxic to most species in the galactic community. And for humans? Vexthar asked. We have strong stomach acid and specialized liver enzymes, Minho explained. We evolved to process things that would poison other species. When I cook this fungus at high temperature, it breaks down those compounds into harmless molecules. Then it's perfectly safe. Vexthar was silent for a moment, processing this information. Show me more. They walked to the cave system. Minho demonstrated how to identify safe fungi versus poisonous types, how to test for toxins using small skin and taste tests, how to find water sources in seemingly dry rock, how to recognize which roots were digestible after proper boiling. Earth taught humans to be extremely adaptable, Minho explained as they explored. We evolved on a planet with extreme climate variations, numerous natural disasters, and thousands of different environments. We learned to eat almost anything organic. What your people see as a barren wasteland, I see as a landscape full of possibilities. They emerged from the cave, and Vexthar stood looking at the crater valley with new eyes. What had seemed like lifeless gray rock now revealed itself to be dotted with patches of life. Small, easily missed, but definitely there. I need to test these samples myself, Vexthar said. To verify your claims. Of course, sir, Minho replied. I expected that. Back at the camp, Minho prepared a full meal while Vexthar ran detailed scans on every food source. The instructor's equipment confirmed what Minho had said. Each sample was genuinely from Kiro 7. Each contained nutrients. Most contained compounds that standard galactic biology couldn't process, but human biology could. Minho cooked lichen flatbread on a hot stone. He roasted fungus pieces until they were golden. He prepared a rich soup from algae and roots. The other cadets watched nervously, unsure what would happen next. When the food was ready, Minho offered a plate to Vexthar. Would you like to try some, sir? Though I should warn you, your biology probably can't digest it safely. Vexthar looked at the plate. Steam rose from the food. It actually smelled appealing. This is extraordinary, he said quietly. I was completely wrong. Not just slightly wrong. Completely wrong, sir, Minho said, surprised by the instructor's tone. Vexthar straightened and addressed all the gathered cadets. I owe you all an apology. I told you this moon was barren. I told you there was nothing edible here. I was operating on incomplete information. Cadet Kim has proven that Kiro 7 can sustain life if one knows how to look for it. He turned back to Minho. How long did it take you to identify all these sources? I found the first 5 within 3 hours of landing, sir, Minho replied. By the end of day 1, I had 23. I've been continuing to explore and test since then. And you shared this knowledge with other cadets? Yes, sir. Anyone who came to my camp hungry, I fed. Anyone who wanted to learn, I taught. Vexthar made a decision. He pulled out his communication device and opened a channel to the academy. Commander Thexel, this is Vexthar. I am at Cadet Kim's location. I have verified his findings. Everything he reported is accurate. The commander's voice came through clearly. So the human found actual food sources? 47 distinct sources, Commander. All from Kiro 7. All genuinely edible for human biology and potentially for other species with proper preparation methods. Our assessment of this moon was fundamentally flawed. There was a pause. Then the commander said, How could we miss this? Our scanning protocols are calibrated for standard galactic biology, Vexthar explained. We search for nutrients that our species can process. We automatically flag anything with unusual compounds as inedible. But humans evolved on a death world. They can eat things we would never consider food. At that moment, Borum Song arrived at the camp with 6 other cadets in tow. They all looked healthier than most cadets still rationing emergency supplies. Borum waved cheerfully at Minho. Hey, Minho. We followed your instructions and found 3 more types of edible moss in the eastern valleys. Want to add them to your collection? Vexthar stared at the new arrivals. How many cadets have you taught these techniques to? Minho thought about it. Directly? About 15. But they've been sharing the knowledge with others. Information spreads fast when people are hungry. The instructor looked at his scanner, then at the food, then at the thriving group of cadets. A slow realization was forming. This wasn't just about one resourceful human. This was about a fundamental gap in galactic survival knowledge. Cadet Kim, Vexthar said formally, you have not only completed this examination. You have revolutionized it. You've discovered resources on a world we thought we knew completely. You've kept fellow cadets from unnecessary suffering, and you've demonstrated that human survival techniques may be valuable to the entire galactic community. Thank you, sir, Minho said, a bit overwhelmed by the praise. Vexthar made another call to the academy. Commander, I recommend we conclude this examination early. We need to document everything Cadet Kim has discovered. This has implications beyond a simple training exercise. Agreed, Commander Thexel replied. We're dispatching retrieval ships now. All cadets will be returned to the academy within 3 hours. Instructor Vexthar, bring detailed samples of everything. We need our xenobiologist to analyze these findings immediately. As Vexthar ended the call, Minho felt a mix of emotions. Pride in what he had accomplished, relief that no one thought he was cheating, but also a bit sad that the adventure was ending. Sir, Minho said, if it's all right, I'd like to come back here sometime. I'm certain there are at least 50 more food sources I haven't found yet. Vexthar's scales shifted to a lighter color, the Scarian equivalent of a smile. Cadet, I suspect you'll be returning here very soon. And next time I'll be joining you. I want to learn these techniques myself. Jiwon walked up beside Minho and grinned. You just turned a survival exam into a cooking show. Only you could do that, Minho laughed. I just did what my grandfather taught me. Look for life everywhere. It's always there if you know how to see it. The main auditorium of the Interstellar Survival Academy had never been so crowded. All 300 cadets from the Kiro 7 examination filled the seats, along with instructors, administrators, and several important guests who had arrived specifically for this presentation. Word had spread quickly through the galactic community about what had happened on the supposedly barren moon. Minho stood backstage with Jiwon and Hyun, feeling more nervous than he had during the entire survival exam. Through the curtain, he could hear the crowd murmuring with excitement. I can't believe they're making you present in front of everyone, Hyun said, adjusting Minho's uniform collar. This should be the instructor's job. They want to hear it from you directly, Jiwon said. You're the one who figured it all out. Commander Thexil appeared, his forearms carrying multiple data pads. Cadet Kim, are you ready? We have representatives from 6 different planetary governments out there, plus the Galactic Science Council. Everyone wants to understand how you accomplished what you did. I'm ready, sir, Minho said, though his stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. The lights dimmed, and Commander Thexil walked onto the stage. The crowd quieted immediately. Welcome, everyone, the commander began. 3 days ago, we sent our cadets to Kiro 7 for their final survival examination. We chose that location because our best scientists had determined it was barren, lifeless, containing nothing edible. We wanted to test our cadets' ability to ration supplies and maintain physical and mental health in harsh conditions. He paused for effect. We were wrong. Completely and fundamentally wrong. Kiro 7 is not barren. It contains at least 47 distinct food sources. We simply didn't know how to see them. Today, Cadet Minho Kim will explain how one human cadet fed himself and 15 others using nothing but what he found on that moon. Cadet Kim, please come forward. Minho walked onto the stage, suddenly very aware of hundreds of eyes watching him, alien eyes of every color and shape imaginable. He took a breath and began, Thank you, Commander. I want to start by explaining where I come from. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. That means it's extremely hostile to most forms of life. Violent weather, tectonic activity, extreme temperature ranges, thousands of different deadly organisms. Humans evolved in that environment, which shaped how we survive. He activated the holographic display behind him, showing images of Earth's various environments. Frozen Arctic wastelands, scorching deserts, dense jungles, high mountains. Humans learned to find food in all of these places. We developed strong immune systems, powerful digestive acids, and specialized organs to process toxins. What would kill most species, we can eat safely with proper preparation. The display changed to show the samples from Kiro 7, each one labeled and categorized. When Instructor Vexthar said Kiro 7 had nothing edible, he was correct for most species, but for humans I saw possibilities everywhere. Let me show you what I found. For the next 30 minutes, Minho walked the audience through his discoveries. He explained the lichen that grew in moisture-rich areas, the cave fungi that thrived in darkness, the underground algae streams, the root systems hidden in rock soil. Each example included notes about how to identify them, test them safely, and prepare them properly. The key is preparation, Minho emphasized. Many of these organisms contain compounds that are toxic in their raw state. But cooking, fermenting, or boiling breaks down those compounds into safe molecules. My grandfather taught me these techniques. They've been used on Earth for thousands of years. A member of the Galactic Science Council raised a tentacle. Cadet Kim, are you saying that worlds we have classified as uninhabitable might actually sustain human life? Possibly, sir, Minho replied carefully. Though I'm not a scientist, I just know how to find food. Instructor Vexithar stood from his seat in the front row. May I address the assembly? Commander Thexil nodded. Vexthar walked to the stage and stood beside Minho. 3 days ago, I was certain of my assessment. I had decades of experience, advanced scanning equipment, expert analysis. I was wrong because I was looking through the lens of my own biology. Cadet Kim looked through the lens of human experience, and he saw what I could not. The instructor turned to face Minho directly. Cadet, I have been teaching survival for 20 years. You have taught me more in 3 days than I learned in 2 decades. I formally apologize for my arrogance in declaring Kiro 7 Baron. And I thank you for your patience in showing me the truth. The auditorium erupted in applause. Minho felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. This was more attention than he had ever wanted. When the applause died down, a new figure stood up. He was human, wearing diplomatic robes. Deho Shin, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, if I may speak. Representative Deho said. Please, Commander Thexel replied. Deho walked to the stage, his expression proud. This is exactly why Earth petitioned to join the Galactic Alliance. Not because we have the most advanced technology, not because we're the strongest military power, but because we offer a different perspective. Humans come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived by being adaptable, creative, resourceful. What we offer the galaxy is our experience in overcoming impossible odds. He placed a hand on Minho's shoulder. This young man represents the best of human ingenuity. He took a challenge meant to test endurance and turned it into an opportunity for discovery. That's what humans do. We find possibilities where others see only obstacles. More applause. Minho caught sight of Jiwan and Hyun in the audience, both grinning widely and clapping enthusiastically. Commander Thexil stepped forward again. Based on these findings, the Academy will be making several changes. First, Cadet Kim will graduate with highest honors. Second, we are establishing a new program called Human Survival Integration. We want to incorporate human techniques into our standard curriculum. The commander pulled up new images on the display. Third, we are launching immediate reassessment missions to 17 worlds previously classified as uninhabitable. If they contain life similar to what was found on Kiro 7, they may be viable for colonization or resource extraction after all. Fourth, Cadet Kim has been offered a position as instructor, should he choose to accept. Minho blinked in surprise. Instructor? But I just graduated. The best teachers are often those with practical experience rather than just theoretical knowledge, Commander Thexel said. You have proven you can find food anywhere. We want you to teach others how to do the same. The assembly broke into discussion, different species talking excitedly about the implications. Minho stood on the stage, still processing everything. After the presentation ended, people crowded around Minho with questions. Scientists wanted samples. Military officers wanted to know if humans could survive on strategic worlds others couldn't occupy. Colonization experts wanted to discuss expanding to new territories. Finally, Jiwon and Hyun managed to push through the crowd and pull Minho aside. You're famous now, Jiwon said, shaking her head in amazement. The human who proved the instructors wrong. I didn't mean to, Minho protested. I was just trying to pass the exam. That's what makes it even better, Hyun said. You weren't showing off. You were just being yourself. Later that evening, after the crowds had dispersed and the excitement had died down, Minho found Instructor Vexthar in the Academy's greenhouse. The Scarian was examining some of the samples Minho had brought back from Kiro 7. Sir? Minho said quietly. Vexthar turned. Cadet Kim, or should I say Instructor Kim. Have you decided whether to accept the teaching position? I have a question first, sir. Would I be allowed to return to Kiro 7 for more research? I was hoping you would ask that, Vexthar said, his scales brightening. Commander Thexel has approved a full research expedition. Proper equipment, scientific support, as much time as you need. He wants a complete catalog of everything edible on that moon. Minho felt excitement rising in his chest. When do we leave, we? Vexthar asked. I assumed you would want to join me, sir. You said you wanted to learn human survival techniques. The instructor was quiet for a moment. Then he made a sound like rumbling gravel, which Minho had learned was Scarian laughter. You are correct. I very much want to learn, and yes, I will join you. Perhaps I can teach you some things as well. Survival should be a shared knowledge, not a competition. My grandfather would have liked you, sir, Minho said with a smile. They stood together, looking at the samples that had changed everything. Tiny pieces of lichen, fragments of fungus, dried algae, small things that most people would never notice. But to the right eyes, they were proof that life existed everywhere, even in the most unlikely places. When can we leave? Minho asked. Tomorrow too soon? Vexthar replied. Tomorrow is perfect. The next morning, Minho stood in the shuttle bay with his pack ready. Jiwon and Hyun came to see him off. Bring back something interesting, Jiwon said, hugging him. Try not to adopt every hungry cadet you meet, Hyun added. You can't feed everyone in the galaxy. I can try, Minho said with a grin. Vexithar approached, carrying his own pack. He looked excited, which was unusual for the normally serious instructor. Ready, cadet? Vexithar asked. Ready, sir. Though there's something I wanted to mention. What's that?